Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather in the understanding that life is full of trials and challenges. We encounter people who hurt us, betray us, and leave scars in our hearts. But let me remind you, beloved, that those scars are not signs of defeat. They are reminders that God is at work. God does not leave us abandoned in our pain. He sees your hurt, He hears your cries, and most importantly, He is working to bring healing. The title of today's message is 7 Signs God is Dealing with Who Hurt You. And I want to take you through these signs to open your heart to the divine work that is being done, even in the moments when you feel overlooked or abandoned. When you carry the burden of unforgiveness, it weighs down your heart and spirit. You may think that by holding on to that pain, you are protecting yourself or even punishing the person who wronged you. But in reality, it is your own soul that bears the weight of bitterness and anger. God understands the depth of our hurts, and He does not want us to live in a prison of unforgiveness. The moment we release those who have hurt us, we open the door to healing and freedom. Forgiveness is not about forgetting the wrongs that have been done to us. It's not about pretending that the hurt never happened or dismissing the pain that was caused. Forgiveness is a choice, a decision to let go of the bitterness and anger that we hold on to, often without realizing how much it harms us. It is about choosing peace over pain and allowing God to take over the justice and judgment that we are so quick to seek. When God begins to deal with the hurt that someone has caused you, He starts by working in your heart first. He doesn't force you to forgive, but He invites you to release your pain and allow Him to heal it. This process is not easy, and it often takes time. It may feel as if your heart is being ripped open as you confront the depth of the wounds. But know this: God never leaves us in our pain. He is present with us, walking alongside us, helping us every step of the way. Releasing unforgiveness does not mean that we are excusing the behavior or actions of the person who hurt us. It simply means that we choose to let go of the hold that their actions have over us. When we hold on to unforgiveness, it keeps us stuck in the past, unable to move forward. We become prisoners to the actions of others, giving them power over our present and future. But when we forgive, we take back that power. We regain control of our own lives and our own hearts. In forgiving, we also recognize that we too have been forgiven. We may not always recognize it, but each one of us has hurt someone at some point in our lives. We have made mistakes, acted out of anger, or failed to show love and kindness when it was needed most. Yet, despite all of this, God forgives us. His forgiveness is boundless, and it is this grace that we must extend to others. When we forgive, we are reflecting the very heart of God. We become vessels of His love, mercy, and grace. Forgiveness is also an act of trust in God. By letting go of the hurt and the desire for revenge, we are acknowledging that God is the ultimate judge, and He will take care of the wrongs that have been done to us. We are not responsible for holding others accountable for their actions. God will handle it in His time and in His way. And when He does, His justice will be far more effective and complete than anything we could ever do on our own. The journey of forgiveness often involves processing the pain and emotions associated with the wrongs that have been done to us. It may require us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the situation. But even in these moments, God is present, working in our hearts to bring healing. As we work through the pain, we find that forgiveness is not a one-time event, but a continuous process. It is a choice that we make daily, sometimes moment by moment, as we surrender our hurt and anger to God. When someone hurts us, our immediate instinct is often to seek retribution, to right the wrong that has been done to us. We may fantasize about how we could make them feel the pain we've endured, how we could make them pay for their actions. But when God is dealing with those who have hurt us, one of the first things he does is shift our focus away from the desire for revenge and toward his power to bring justice. This shift in perspective is not easy, but it is essential for our healing and spiritual growth. The inability to seek revenge is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it is a sign of strength and spiritual maturity. It requires great courage to refrain from seeking revenge when we feel justified in doing so. Our natural impulses urge us to take matters into our own hands, to assert control over the situation. But when God is working in us, he teaches us that vengeance is not our responsibility. He shows us that his justice is perfect, and it is in his hands, not ours. Revenge can feel satisfying in the moment. The thought of seeing someone who has wronged us face consequences for their actions can seem like a form of closure or a way to restore balance. However, what we often fail to realize is that revenge only perpetuates the cycle of pain and hurt. It keeps us bound to the person who hurt us, allowing them to continue influencing our lives through our anger and desire for retribution. God, however, offers a different way, one that leads to peace, healing, and restoration. When we allow ourselves to seek revenge, we open a door to bitterness, anger, and even hatred. These negative emotions take root in our hearts and begin to corrupt our minds, making it difficult to experience the joy and peace that God has for us. Seeking revenge is a form of self-sabotage because it prevents us from moving forward. We become consumed with thoughts of retribution and the desire to see someone suffer. And in doing so, we trap ourselves in the past. The longer we dwell on the wrongs done to us, the harder it becomes to find peace and healing. God calls us to rise above these natural inclinations. He calls us to live in a way that reflects his love, grace, and mercy. This is not to say that we should ignore the wrongs done to us or let them go unaddressed. Justice is important, and God is just. But he teaches us that we do not need to take justice into our own hands. He will deal with the situation in his perfect timing and in his perfect way. When we relinquish our desire for revenge, we make room for God's justice to work in a way that brings true healing and restoration. Amen. The inability to seek revenge also teaches us to trust God's sovereignty. It's a declaration that we believe God is in control of our lives, that he sees our pain, and that he will make things right in his time. Trusting God's timing is often one of the most difficult aspects of this journey. We want immediate relief, immediate justice, and we want to see the person who hurt us suffer. But trusting God means surrendering our desire for control and allowing him to handle the situation according to his divine plan. As we allow God to deal with those who have hurt us, we begin to realize that our desire for revenge is often rooted in our own need for validation. We want to be acknowledged, to be vindicated, to have our suffering recognized. But God assures us that he sees all things. He knows the depth of our pain and the true nature of the wrongs done to us. His validation is enough. His truth will prevail, and he will ensure that justice is served in the way that best reflects his glory and his love. When God is dealing with the ones who have hurt us, he doesn't just deal with them. He is also working in us, transforming our hearts and teaching us the value of mercy and grace. He shows us that we are not called to live in a cycle of retribution, but to live in freedom. Freedom from bitterness, anger, and the need for revenge. This freedom allows us to experience his peace and to move forward in our lives with a heart that is not weighed down by past hurts. And as we surrender our desire for revenge to God, we open ourselves up to the possibility of healing and restoration. We no longer let the actions of others dictate our emotional state or define our peace. Instead, we let God's love and justice reign in our hearts, knowing that he will work all things together for our good. When God begins to work in our lives, one of the most powerful changes occurs not just within us, but within the very people who have caused us harm. We often look at the one who hurt us and feel as though they will never change, that their actions are too entrenched in their nature. We may even begin to believe that they are beyond redemption or transformation. However, what we fail to realize is that God's power is far greater than any wrongdoing. And He is always at work in the lives of others, just as He is at work in ours. The change in the person who has hurt us begins with God's ability to touch their hearts. It's a quiet, often unseen process. The person who once acted out of selfishness, anger, or pride may start to experience conviction. They may find themselves reflecting on their actions, realizing the depth of the harm they caused, and feeling remorse for what they've done. This process of self-awareness is not something we can orchestrate. It is something that only God can initiate. He works through the power of His Spirit to open their eyes and soften their hearts. At first, the change may be subtle. You may notice small shifts in their behavior, perhaps an apology, a change in attitude, or even an attempt to make amends. These small gestures, while they may not undo the pain they cause, are signs that God is at work in their lives. And while it may be difficult to believe that the person who hurt you is capable of change, it is important to remember that no one is beyond the reach of God's grace. We must trust that God knows what He is doing and that He is working in the lives of all His children, including the one who caused our pain. Sometimes, the change in the person who hurt us may not be immediate. It may take time for them to recognize the consequences of their actions and for them to truly repent. But when God is involved, His timing is always perfect. We may not see the change right away, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. God's work in others is often a gradual process, and it unfolds in ways that we might not fully understand. It is important not to give up hope or lose faith, for God is continually working in ways that we cannot always see. As the person begins to change, we may also begin to witness deeper transformation in their relationships with others. The same patterns of selfishness and hurtful behavior that once defined them begin to fade away. They may start to show more kindness, compassion, and understanding. The hard edges of their personality may begin to soften, and they may start to act with greater humility and grace. This change is a reflection of God's love working in their hearts, reshaping them from the inside out. It's important to note that the change in the person who hurt you is not just for their benefit, it's for everyone involved. As God works in their hearts, the ripple effect of this transformation impacts everyone around them. Their relationships with others improve, and the negative cycles of hurt and pain that may have once characterized their interactions begin to break down. This can be incredibly powerful, not only for you as the one who was hurt, but for others who have been affected by their actions. However, even as we witness the change in the person who hurt us, we must remember that we cannot control this process. We cannot force someone to change, nor should we expect instant results. The change is God's work, not ours. Our role is to remain open to forgiveness, to continue to trust in God's plan, and to allow Him to work in His own time. Sometimes that means waiting patiently as God deals with the other person, trusting that His work in them is as important as His work in us. The beauty of this process is that God doesn't only deal with the surface level behavior of the person who hurt us. He goes deeper, addressing the root causes of their actions, the pain, the brokenness, the wounds that may have led them to hurt others in the first place. God is not simply concerned with changing their outward behavior. He is concerned with healing their hearts. He offers them the same grace and mercy that He offers to all of us, giving them the opportunity to experience true transformation. This change in the person who hurt you is a testimony to God's redemptive power. It shows us that no one is beyond His reach, that even those who have caused us the greatest pain can be touched by His love and grace. It is a reminder that God is always at work, even in the most challenging and difficult situations. When we trust Him with our pain and our relationships, we allow Him to bring about a transformation that we could never achieve on our own. When you find peace within you, it is as though a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict. It is the presence of calm assurance, a deep-rooted tranquility that exists even in the midst of turmoil. God's peace is unlike any peace the world can offer. It surpasses human understanding and fills the deepest corners of our hearts with a sense of rest that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. This peace within you becomes evident when God is dealing with the hurt in your life, particularly when you've been wronged by others. As the pain of betrayal, hurt, or injustice threatens to overwhelm you, God's peace gently intervenes. It doesn't come in the form of an immediate fix or a quick resolution to your problems, but rather as a quiet assurance that God is present and in control. When you are struggling to make sense of your circumstances, and when anger or bitterness begins to rise up, God's peace calms your spirit and reminds you that He has everything under control. This peace is not a fleeting feeling that fades with time. It is an ongoing, abiding presence that remains with you even when everything around you is falling apart. The peace that God offers is not the peace of avoidance, where you ignore or suppress the hurt that has been caused. It is a peace that acknowledges the reality of your pain, but assures you that God is working in the midst of it. It doesn't deny the existence of your struggle. It simply shifts your focus from the problem to the solution, from the offense to the one who holds the answers to all of life's questions. The moment you begin to rest in God's peace, you stop feeling the need to control the situation, to demand justice, or to take matters into your own hands. Instead, you trust that God will bring resolution in His time. In the midst of hurt and disappointment, God's peace also helps you see beyond the moment. It gives you the perspective to understand that your current pain is temporary, and that God is using this season to refine you and bring about greater growth. You begin to see that there is purpose in the pain, and that in time you will come out stronger and more resilient. This peace allows you to be still, to wait patiently for God to work, knowing that He is shaping both your character and the situation in ways you cannot yet comprehend. As God works in you, the peace within you becomes a shield that protects your heart from being hardened. When we hold on to anger and unforgiveness, we build walls around our hearts to protect ourselves. But God's peace does the opposite. It softens our hearts and keeps us open to His work. It prevents us from being consumed by bitterness, which would only further trap us in a cycle of pain. Instead, God's peace allows us to feel our emotions, acknowledge our hurt, and yet remain open to His healing touch. This peace is not dependent on your circumstances. It doesn't come from external validation or from having everything in your life go according to plan. It is rooted in the knowledge that God is always with you, and that no matter what you face, He is able to bring good from every situation. You begin to understand that your identity is not defined by the hurts you have experienced, but by who you are in Christ. This peace makes it possible to walk through life with a sense of security, knowing that God's purposes will always prevail. God's peace is also a witness to others. When those around you see you walking through difficult situations with a sense of calm and assurance, they will be curious about the source of that peace. It opens the door for you to share the love of Christ and the testimony of His faithfulness. Your peace becomes a living testimony of the transformative power of God, and through it, others can see the reality of His presence in your life. The deeper the peace within you, the more you begin to reflect the nature of God in your everyday life. It empowers you to respond to others with kindness and patience, even when they have wronged you. It gives you the strength to let go of the desire for revenge or the need to make others pay for their actions. This peace enables you to live freely, unburdened by past hurts, and to extend grace to those around you. As God deals with the hurt in your life, He replaces your turmoil with His peace. It is a peace that remains, that grows, and that empowers you to live in a way that reflects His love and faithfulness. It does not erase the reality of your pain, but it transforms how you experience it. And in this transformation, you find yourself walking in a deeper, more profound relationship with God, trusting in His plan and finding rest in His presence. When God begins to deal with the pain caused by others, one of the powerful ways He works is by exposing the truth. This exposure goes far beyond mere surface level understanding. It involves revealing hidden realities, unmasking deceit, and bringing clarity to situations that may have seemed clouded by lies or manipulation. Truth has a unique power. It has the ability to set things right, to clear the confusion, and to bring light into the darkest of circumstances. When God exposes the truth, He does so not to embarrass or shame, but to heal, to restore, and to bring freedom. The exposure of truth is often a gradual process. At first, you may feel as though the full picture is elusive, with pieces of the situation not quite fitting together. There may be moments of doubt when you question your own perception of what has happened, or wonder if you've misunderstood the intentions of others. In these moments, it is easy to fall into the trap of assuming the worst, or becoming consumed with anger and frustration. But God is a God of truth, and He will not leave us in confusion. He works quietly behind the scenes to bring the truth to light in His perfect timing. One of the most important aspects of God exposing the truth is that He reveals not only the actions of others, but also the motives behind those actions. People may hurt us, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but we may never fully understand the reasons behind their behavior. Sometimes their actions are rooted in their own pain, fears, or insecurities. The truth that God reveals about others often includes the deeper emotional or psychological struggles that may have driven them to hurt us in the first place. This understanding doesn't excuse their actions, but it helps us see the bigger picture and fosters empathy and compassion. At times, the exposure of truth may come through the actions of others. A person who has hurt you may eventually admit their wrongs, offer an apology, or express remorse for their behavior. This revelation can be incredibly healing as it brings closure to the situation and confirms what God has been showing you in your heart. It's a moment of reconciliation where both parties can acknowledge the truth and begin the process of healing. However, the truth can also be exposed in more subtle ways, such as through the natural unfolding of circumstances. Over time, lies and deception often come to the surface, and what was once hidden becomes evident. God also exposes the truth to us about ourselves. Often in our hurt, we may focus solely on the wrongs done to us, but God in His wisdom will sometimes use our pain to reveal areas in our own hearts that need healing. Maybe we have been holding on to unforgiveness. Maybe we have allowed bitterness to take root. Or maybe we have been harboring our own doubts about God's plan for our lives. The truth that God reveals is not only about the actions of others, but also about our own hearts and motivations. When we see the truth about ourselves, we are able to let go of any negative emotions that we've been holding on to, allowing God to bring healing and transformation. Exposure of truth also serves as a powerful tool in setting the record straight. Often, when we are wronged, others may not fully understand the depth of the hurt caused, or may even be misled by the person who wronged us. God's truth brings clarity, showing everyone involved the full extent of what has happened. This clarity is not just for the person who hurt us, but for everyone else who may have been affected by the situation. It restores justice and ensures that the truth prevails regardless of how things may have appeared in the beginning. In revealing the truth, God also protects us from further harm. Lies and deceit can often entrap us in a cycle of pain, misunderstanding, and mistrust. But when the truth is exposed, we are no longer bound by the false narratives that others may have created. The lies lose their power, and we are free to move forward in a new light. This exposure of truth is a form of divine protection, protecting us from the confusion, the manipulation, and the ongoing hurt that comes from remaining in the dark. The process of truth being exposed is not always immediate. It takes time, patience, and trust in God's timing. But as the truth comes to light, it brings peace, it brings understanding, and it brings a sense of closure. No longer do we have to question what happened or why it happened. The truth, when fully revealed, enables us to step out of the shadows of confusion and into the freedom that comes from knowing things as they truly are. This exposure of truth can be painful at times. It may not always unfold in the way we expect or want, but it is always for our good. God's commitment to truth is a reflection of his love for us. He does not want us to live in deception, confusion, or pain. His desire is for us to walk in freedom, in understanding, and in the full knowledge of his truth. Through this process, we are ultimately shaped into the people he has called us to be, able to move forward with a clear vision and a healed heart. Restoration and victory are powerful promises from God, especially when we are dealing with hurt, betrayal, or any form of adversity. These two concepts are inseparable in God's redemptive work. When God begins the process of restoring what has been broken in our lives, he doesn't just put things back the way they were. He takes what is damaged, what has been shattered by the actions of others or the circumstances we find ourselves in, and he transforms it into something stronger, more beautiful, and more aligned with his purpose for us. Restoration is not just about healing. It's about renewal and making something even better than it was before. Victory in this context doesn't always mean a dramatic instant win over the challenges we face. It isn't always about defeating an external enemy or overcoming an obstacle in the way. Rather, the victory God offers is a deep inner victory, a triumph over the emotional, mental, and spiritual battles that often weigh us down. Victory is found in the peace we experience, the strength we gain, and the freedom we walk in once we trust God's hand in our restoration process. When we allow God to restore us, we are stepping into a victory that is beyond anything we could have achieved on our own. This restoration is often a slow and intentional process. God doesn't rush the healing and rebuilding that takes place in our lives. Sometimes it can feel as though the pain or the damage caused by others is never ending. But we must trust that God is working behind the scenes. Restoration doesn't always come in the way we expect or at the speed we desire, but it comes at the perfect time and in the perfect way that will ultimately lead to a more complete victory. God knows what we need to heal, and he knows exactly how to restore us, even when we are unsure of the next step. Through restoration, God begins to work in the deep places of our hearts. When we are hurt, it's easy to close off parts of ourselves, to retreat into bitterness, or to become jaded. We may even develop a belief that we are unworthy of the fullness of what God desires for us. But restoration is about bringing us back to the truth of who we are in Christ. It is about God reminding us of our value, of his love for us, and of his plan to redeem every part of our lives. As we open ourselves up to God's work in our hearts, he takes the broken pieces and makes them whole again. He heals the wounds that have been inflicted on us and gives us the strength to rise above them. As victory is closely tied to our ability to see beyond the hurt. When we are consumed with the pain others have caused us, we may feel as though we've been defeated. But God's victory for us is about shifting our perspective. It's about realizing that no matter what has been done to us we are more than conquerors through Christ. His victory in our lives is not just about overcoming the specific situation at hand. It's about the victory over the attitudes, emotions, and mindsets that have kept us bound. As we allow God to restore our hearts, we experience the victory of freedom. Freedom from bitterness, freedom from fear, freedom from anger, and freedom from self-doubt. The victory God gives us is not just for us, it is also a witness to others. As we walk in the restoration He has brought to our lives, others see the power of God at work. They see how, despite the hurt and challenges we have faced, we have emerged stronger and more resilient. Our lives become a testimony to the faithfulness of God, to the fact that no situation is too far gone for His redemptive power to reach. Victory, in this sense, becomes a public display of God's glory. In the process of restoration, we may also be called to restore relationships, to rebuild trust with those who have wronged us. This part of restoration is not always easy, but it is vital. It requires us to extend grace and forgiveness, just as God has extended grace to us. The ability to forgive those who have hurt us is a sign of the victory we've experienced in Christ. It's the victory of choosing love over bitterness, peace over anger, and reconciliation over division. Restoration and victory are also deeply intertwined with the promises of God's faithfulness. When we go through seasons of hurt and pain, we may question whether God is still with us. We may wonder if He has abandoned us in our suffering, but restoration is a declaration of God's faithfulness. It is a reminder that no matter what we face, God is always at work, bringing about good in our lives. His victory is guaranteed, not because we are strong enough to fight the battles on our own, but because He is strong enough to win them for us. God's restoration and victory are part of a larger narrative of healing and hope. They remind us that no matter the depth of the hurt, God is capable of bringing us through to a place of peace, strength, and freedom. As we continue to trust in His plan, we can rest assured that the restoration He is working in our lives will lead to victory. Victory over the past, victory over the pain, and victory in Christ's love.